She found him bleeding in the snow on Christmas Eve. No ID, no pulse, just a stranger dying alone while the world celebrated inside warm houses. Rhea Miller should have called 911, should have walked away. But something about his face, peaceful, like he'd accepted death, made her kneel down and whisper, "Not tonight. You don't die alone on Christmas." What she didn't know? He'd been waiting 300 years for someone to say those exact words. Rhea Miller hated Christmas. Not in the fun Grinch way, in the quiet, aching way of someone who'd spent too many holidays alone. Her parents were gone, her friends had families, and her apartment building was so silent on Christmas Eve she could hear every carol drifting up from the street below, reminding her that joy was happening everywhere except here. She'd decided to take a walk, clear her head, maybe grab terrible gas station coffee and pretend she was the protagonist in one of those indie films where loneliness looks poetic instead of pathetic. The snow was falling heavy and soft, turning the city into something almost magical. Streetlights made everything glow golden. Store windows sparkled with lights. Families hurried past carrying wrapped presents and laughing children. And Rhea walked alone, hands shoved deep in her coat pockets, wondering when exactly she'd become invisible. That's when she saw him. A man, collapsed against a brick wall in an alley between a closed bookshop and a church. His long blonde hair was matted with snow. His face was pale, too pale. And there was blood, dark and stark against the white snow beneath him. Rhea's first instinct was to keep walking. This was a city. People got hurt. It wasn't her responsibility. But then she looked closer. He wasn't moving, wasn't breathing, and his eyes, even closed, looked so incredibly sad, like he'd been sad for a very, very long time. "Hey!" Her voice cracked. She knelt beside him, snow soaking through her jeans. "Hey, can you hear me?" Nothing. She pressed shaking fingers against his neck. No pulse. His skin was cold, not winter cold, death cold. "No," Rhea whispered. "No, no, no, you can't. Not on Christmas. Not alone. Nobody should die alone on Christmas." She didn't know why she said it. Didn't know why tears were suddenly burning her eyes for a stranger she'd never met. Maybe it was because she understood loneliness. Maybe it was because she'd spent so many nights thinking about what it would be like to just disappear, and nobody would notice. "I'm calling for help," she said, pulling out her phone with trembling hands. "Just hold on, please hold on." His eyes opened. They were the most incredible color she'd ever seen, pale silver blue, like moonlight on water. And they looked directly at her with an intensity that stole her breath. "You came," he whispered. His voice was rough, barely audible, British accent threading through the words. "After all this time, someone finally came." "I'm calling 911. "No." His hand, freezing, impossibly strong, caught her wrist. "No hospitals, please, just stay, just for a moment." "You're hurt. You need help." "I need," he smiled, small and broken. "I need someone to talk to, just for a little while, before I go." Rhea should have pulled away, should have insisted, but something in his eyes, ancient and tired and unbearably lonely, made her sit down in the snow beside him. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll stay." "Thank you." He closed his eyes, still holding her wrist like she was an anchor. "What's your name?" "Rhea. Rhea Miller." "Rhea." He said it like a prayer, like her name was the most beautiful word he'd ever heard. "I'm Alaric." "Hi, Alaric," she tried to smile. "Terrible night for dying." He laughed, actually laughed, and it was the saddest, most wonderful sound. "I've been dying for 300 years. Tonight feels appropriate." Rhea blinked. "What?" "Poetic, even. Christmas Eve, snow falling, a kind stranger holding my hand." His eyes opened again, focusing on her face. "I always wondered what it would be like, to have someone care, even if they don't know me." Are you high? Did someone hurt you?" "Someone hurt me in 1724. I've been running from it ever since. Okay, he was definitely delirious. Blood loss, hypothermia, shock. She needed to get him help whether he wanted it or not. But then he squeezed her hand and his grip was strong. Too strong for someone dying. And when she looked closer at the blood on his shirt, she realized something impossible. It wasn't spreading, wasn't flowing, it was just there, old, already dried. "Alaric," she said carefully, "what's happening? What are you?" He looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Snow caught in his long blonde hair. Christmas lights reflected in those strange silver eyes. And when he spoke, his voice carried centuries. "I'm a vampire, Rhea Miller, and I'm very, very tired." She should have run, should have screamed, should have done literally anything except what she actually did. She laughed. "Okay, sure, you're a vampire, and I'm Santa Claus. Come on, let's get you somewhere warm before you freeze to death. Again, apparently." "You don't believe me." "I believe you need medical attention and possibly a psychiatric evaluation." She stood, pulling at his arm. "Can you walk?" He stared at her. Then, slowly, he smiled. A real smile this time. One that transformed his entire face from tragic to devastating. "You're trying to save me." "Obviously. That's generally what you do when you find someone dying in an alley." "No one's tried to save me in 3 centuries. "Well, their loss. Come on, tall, blonde, and delusional. On your feet." Alaric stood, smoothly, easily, like someone who definitely wasn't mortally wounded. Rhea stumbled back, suddenly aware of how much taller he was, how he moved like liquid shadow, how his eyes seemed to glow in the darkness. "Still think I need medical attention?" His voice was amused now, warm. Rhea's heart hammered. What are you really?" "I told you, a vampire. Immortal, cursed. Very dramatic backstory involving betrayal and forbidden love. The usual." He tilted his head. "You're not running." "Should I be?" "Most people do." "I'm not most people." Rhea crossed her arms, trying to look braver than she felt. "And it's Christmas Eve. I'm not leaving you alone, even if you are a vampire, which I'm still not entirely convinced about." Alaric stepped closer, close enough that she could see the snowflakes melting on his impossibly perfect face. Close enough to notice he didn't seem to breathe. "You're serious?" "I'm stubborn. There's a difference." "Why?" The question was raw, vulnerable. "Why do you care?" Rhea thought about her empty apartment, about the silence that waited for her, about how many Christmases she'd spent alone wishing someone, anyone, would notice she existed. "Because nobody should be alone on Christmas," she said simply. "Not even vampires. Especially not sad, dramatic vampires who look like they stepped out of a romance novel." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, hope, wonder. "You're remarkable," he whispered. "I'm cold. Come on. My apartment's 6 blocks away. You can explain the whole vampire thing over hot chocolate." "I can't drink hot chocolate." "Then you can watch me drink hot chocolate while you explain. Let's go." She started walking, and after a moment of stunned silence, Alaric followed. Rhea's apartment was small, tiny, really. Studio with a kitchen that was barely a kitchen, and a bathroom you could touch all 4 walls of simultaneously. But it was warm, and she'd put up a small Christmas tree, mostly out of spite, to prove to herself she wasn't completely defeated by loneliness. The tree lights twinkled cheerfully as Alaric stood in her doorway, looking uncertain. "You have to invite me in," he said quietly. "It's a vampire thing." "Seriously?" "Threshold rules. Very traditional." Rhea rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. "Fine. Alaric Nightbane, vampire extraordinaire. You're invited into my home. Happy?" "Nightbane." He stepped inside looking amused. "That's not actually my surname." "I know, but you look like an Alaric Nightbane. What's your real last name?" "I haven't used it in so long I barely remember. Names stop mattering after the 1st century." He stood in the center of her small space, looking impossibly out of place. Too tall, too beautiful, too otherworldly, like a fallen angel in her discount furniture kingdom. "Sit," Rhea ordered, pointing at her couch. "I'm making hot chocolate." "You don't have to. I'm making hot chocolate." "You're sitting, and then you're explaining why a 300-year-old vampire was dying in an alley on Christmas Eve." Alaric sat, watched her move around the tiny kitchen, and when she brought him a mug, even though he'd said he couldn't drink it, he held it carefully, like it was precious. "I wasn't dying," he said quietly. "I was waiting." For what? For someone to notice. For someone to care. He stared into the mug. "I've lived for 3 centuries, Rhea. I've seen empires rise and fall. I've watched humanity invent electricity, airplanes, the internet. I've experienced more than most people could in 1,000 lifetimes. But," Rhea prompted, sitting beside him, "but I've never had someone stop. Never had someone kneel in the snow and say, 'You don't die alone tonight.' Never had someone care about a stranger." He looked at her, eyes impossibly sad. "Do you know what that's like? To be surrounded by people and feel completely invisible." Rhea's throat tightened. "Yeah, actually, I do." They sat in silence. The Christmas tree lights blinked red and green and gold. Outside, church bells started ringing. Midnight, Christmas Day. "I stopped believing in Christmas a long time ago," Alaric said. "Stopped believing in magic, in goodness, in the idea that kindness still existed in the world." "And now?" He turned to her, really looked at her, and smiled, soft and genuine and achingly hopeful. "Now I'm sitting in a stranger's apartment drinking hypothetical hot chocolate on Christmas morning because someone cared enough to save me. So maybe," he paused, "maybe I was wrong." Rhea felt something crack open in her chest, something warm and terrifying and wonderful. You weren't dying, she realized. You were giving up. For 300 years, I've been alone, watching everyone I cared about age and die, unable to connect, unable to stay. Tonight, I wanted it to end. I wanted to close my eyes and finally rest. But you didn't. No. He set down the mug, reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand. His skin was cool, but not cold, not dead, just different. Because you wouldn't let me. Alaric, you saved me, Rhea Miller, not from death. I'm already dead. You saved me from disappearing, from becoming nothing. You reminded me that kindness still exists, that someone, somewhere, might still care. Tears pricked Rhea's eyes. I didn't do anything special. You did everything. You stopped. You stayed. You brought me to your home on Christmas Eve and made me hot chocolate I can't even drink. He laughed, wet and broken. You gave me hope. I'm just lonely, Rhea whispered. I'm just a lonely woman who saw someone lonelier. Then we're perfect for each other. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, dangerous with possibility. Are you? Rhea's voice shook. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Alaric's smile was crooked, hopeful, terrified. I'm saying I've spent 300 years alone, and in one night, you've made me want to stay, made me want to try, made me believe that maybe, just maybe, I could have something real. With me? With you. But I'm human. I'll age, I'll die, I know. He cupped her face gently. And every moment will be precious. Every Christmas together will be a gift. Every day with you will be worth 300 years of loneliness. That's insane. Completely. We just met. I know. You're a vampire. Unfortunately. This is crazy. Absolutely. Rhea looked at him, really looked, at the hope in his ancient eyes, at the gentle way he held her like she was made of starlight, at the impossible miracle of this moment. I was so lonely tonight, she whispered. I thought I'd spend another Christmas alone, another year invisible. You're not invisible. You're extraordinary. I'm really not. You are to me. And there, in her tiny apartment with the discount Christmas tree and the cooling hot chocolate, on the first minutes of Christmas Day, Rhea Miller made the most insane decision of her life. She leaned forward and kissed him. Alaric froze, then melted. His hands came up to cradle her face like she was the most precious thing in the world. The kiss was soft, gentle, full of 300 years of loneliness finally finding home. When they pulled apart, both were crying. "Stay," Rhea whispered. "Not just tonight, stay." "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm tired of being alone. And you're tired of running, so maybe—" She smiled through tears. "Maybe we can be less lonely together." Alaric laughed, pulled her close, held her like he'd never let go. "Merry Christmas, Rhea Miller." "Merry Christmas, Alaric Nightbane." Outside, snow continued to fall. Church bells rang. And somewhere in the city, other lonely people walked past each other, invisible and alone. But in one tiny apartment, a miracle happened. Not the flashy kind, not the kind that makes headlines or wins awards. The quiet kind, the real kind. Two lonely souls found each other on Christmas Eve and decided that maybe, just maybe, they didn't have to be lonely anymore. 3 months later, Rhea woke up to sunlight streaming through curtains and the smell of coffee. She stumbled into the kitchen, their kitchen now. Alaric had insisted on getting a bigger place, and found him standing at the stove, attempting to make pancakes. "You don't eat food," she pointed out, amused. "No, but you do, and I've been watching cooking videos." He flipped a pancake. It landed perfectly. He looked ridiculously proud. "I'm becoming domestic." "You're ridiculous." "You love it." She did. God help her, she really did. Alaric had moved in 2 weeks after Christmas. It was fast, insane, completely irresponsible, and Rhea had never been happier. He was still a vampire, still immortal, still had centuries of trauma and a dramatic backstory he was slowly unpacking. But he was also funny, kind, thoughtful. He left her notes hidden around the apartment. He learned to make her favorite coffee. He watched terrible reality TV with her and provided centuries-old historical context that made everything funnier. And every night, he held her like she was the miracle, like she was the one who'd saved him. "I have something for you," Alaric said, sliding a plate of perfect pancakes across the counter. "It's not Christmas." "Every day with you feels like Christmas." He pulled out a small box, velvet, old-fashioned. Rhea's heart stopped. "Alaric, I know it's fast. I know we've only been together 3 months, but I've lived 300 years and I've never felt this. Never wanted forever with someone." He opened the box. Inside was a ring, antique, beautiful. "Marry me, Rhea. Let me spend whatever time you have making you happy. Let me prove that Christmas miracles are real." Rhea stared at the ring, at this impossible, wonderful, ridiculous vampire who'd stumbled into her life on the loneliest night of the year. "Yes," she whispered. "You absolute disaster. Yes." He slid the ring on her finger, kissed her until she couldn't breathe, and when they pulled apart, both were grinning like idiots. "I can't believe I'm marrying a vampire," Rhea said. "I can't believe I'm marrying someone who makes me want to learn to cook." "We're insane." "Completely." "I love you." "I love you too." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you for saving me." "Thank you for letting me." Outside, spring was blooming. The world was waking up. And in their kitchen, with terrible pancakes and perfect coffee, 2 people who'd been lost found something neither expected: home. Years later, when people asked how they met, Rhea always smiled and said, "I found him in an alley on Christmas Eve." And Alaric would add, "She saved my life." "You were already dead," Rhea would point out. "Then she saved my death." They'd laugh, hold hands, and everyone who saw them could feel it, that rare, precious thing, the kind of love that survives centuries, the kind that starts with kindness on a snowy night, the kind that proves miracles don't always look like magic. Sometimes they look like a lonely woman stopping for a stranger. Sometimes they look like a vampire learning to hope. Sometimes they look like 2 broken people deciding to be less broken together. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they look like Christmas. If this story reminded you that kindness matters, that stopping for someone, that caring about a stranger, that choosing connection over isolation can change everything, leave a comment telling me about a time someone's kindness changed your life. Let's fill this comment section with hope, because the world needs more people like Rhea, more moments like this, more reminders that we're not as alone as we think. And if you need this reminder, if you're spending tonight alone, if you feel invisible, if you're wondering when your miracle will come, this is your sign. You matter, you're seen, and your Christmas miracle might be closer than you think. Merry Christmas Eve, Happy Holidays, and remember, the best gift you can give someone is letting them know they're not alone.